The running joke is in France, the customer is always wrong. It's with this approach I find some rather startling observations with this French carrier. Perhaps it's just me with a hypersensitive trip reporting beacon turned on? Or could there be some truth to this? Suppose it's time we say bonsoir, bienvenue à bord d'Airfrance.
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Bonsoir mes amis, c'est l'aéroport de Changi à Singapour. Aujourd'hui, je voyage à Paris avec Air France. So this is my first time flying Air France in like forever, so I've never actually been with them before. So I've actually arrived earlier on from Melbourne with JETSTAR, so you might want to check that video out before continuing with this one. So anyway, let's get this journey started tonight with Air France from Singapore Changi Airport all the way to Paris Charles de Gaulle. Let's do this.
Everybody just do your thing.
Christmas Eve in Singapore is extremely different from what we're used to in the Western world. At least from an Australian's point of view, Christmas Eve evening is really when the entire city goes to sleep. Even the airport quietens down because presumably you're already with your family and loved ones at this point, waiting for midnight to wish everyone Merry Christmas. However, here in Singapore, decorations go into overdrive and retail therapy are all on extended hours with restaurants as well. Everyone is out and about, soaking in the atmosphere. Since I had a 5-hour transit between Melbourne and Paris, I used this opportunity to catch up with my brother and sister-in-law. I mean, what else is there to do but eat? I also pay a visit to what is a hidden gem here in Terminal 1, which is the airport staff canteen. Over here, you're able to sample everyday hawker food without burning a hole in your pocket. But this evening, being Christmas Eve, I think all the hawkers decided to call it an early night because most of the stores were closed by the time I arrived. Oh well, better luck next time, eh? If you're new to my channel, my name's Ryan. Born and bred in Singapore, I now call Australia home, and I create heaps of travel and food-related content. On this trip, I'll be setting foot in 7 countries, namely Singapore, where I am now, France, and Malta, where I'll spend most of my time in. I'll move on to Italy, Switzerland, UK, and finally Vietnam before going home. There'll be loads of flight reviews, there's about 9 of them alone, beautiful train journeys, and destination vlogs from Malta, Gozo, Rome, Venice, Zurich, London, and Ho Chi Minh City are all in the pipeline. Are you exhausted listening to this? So don't forget to stay tuned to what's coming up. Even better, hit subscribe and the bell icon so you won't miss the next exciting episode. Giving me a like will surely encourage me to keep the content flowing. Here's the thanks because your support is very much appreciated. If you're an aviation enthusiast like me, chances are you've heard of Air France before everything else. They're one of the oldest airlines in the world to have kept this name, and they have done so since the 1930s. They're also one of the largest international airlines on Earth, serving over 200 destinations in 78 countries. These days, airline liveries all over the world prominently feature an Euro-white design. Guess what? Just like French fashion, Air France is the forefather of the Euro-white, having painted their planes like that since 1976. Talk about being ahead of its time. There are a total of 23 flights between Changi and Charles de Gaulle per week. A bulk of this is operated by Singapore Airlines twice a day with the Airbus A350. Air France has a morning flight on certain days of the week using a Dreamliner, and the daily evening flight is operated by a Boeing 777-300ER, like the one we're on tonight. Taking us on this long red-eye flight to Charles de Gaulle is Golf Sierra Quebec Lima, a Boeing 777-300ER which first flew in January 2006, making her 18 years old at the time of writing. This aircraft carries the name Azay-le-Rideau, which is a region in central West France. The greeting at the door was incredibly warm and welcoming. But this flight would soon show we would encounter the best and worst of French hospitality. So do stay tuned to the end with my observations. With present generation Dreamliners and Airbus A350s flying our skies, this 777 suddenly feels extremely last generation. Man, it feels like yesterday when Boeing revealed the 777 as the next generation wide-bodied aircraft to take us into the future. This model tonight has 4 classes. For the lucky ones, there are 4 first-class seats, a whopping premium-heavy 58 business class seats, 28 in premium economy, and for the bulk of the unwashed like me, suffering from this sticky, relentless humidity, we have 206 economy seats. The flight attendants greeting us gradually became a rare breed as we worked our way further back. The last time I saw one, she was stationed at the end of premium economy cabin. Once we were back here, I did not notice any crew on hand to help us with anything. In fact, we were mostly left to our own devices until after the boarding process was complete. The usual amenities you'd expect for a long-haul red-eye flight were already placed on the seat: pillow, blanket, and headphones. I deliberately chose these seats at the end where the aircraft fuselage tapers and the row of 3 seats become 2, because this is where you'd find a larger than normal seat pitch. Just look at the amount of space. Seat recline is also very impressive. So this has all the makings of a comfortable long-haul economy class. Well, as comfortable as it can be sitting upright. There are no individual air vents and it's very, very warm. Yeah. I wish we could have done this takeoff in the daytime to appreciate how huge the Terminal 5 project is. As we get airborne into the night, let's look at our flight path for AF257 from Changi to Charles de Gaulle. Our departure profile would take us over Peninsular Malaysia, where we'd coast out towards the Indian Ocean over Kuala Lumpur. Once we turn the lights off for bedtime, we'd fly over India before hitting the Arabian Desert towards Cairo. We then say hello to southern Greece before coasting along the boot of Italy and settling nicely towards our destination in Paris, clocking a total flight time of 13 hours 50 minutes and a distance of just over 10,700 kilometers. From here on, I shall introduce the characters of Antoinette, the beautiful flight attendant serving my aisle, and Hissy on the other aisle. As we settled into our cruising altitude over Malaysia, this was when special meals started to be brought out to those who ordered it. And it seems they were seated on the other side where Hissy was assigned to. With trays in her hand, her audible interaction caught my attention. Over the roar of the noisy 777 engines, Hissy started to, well, hiss. "Did you change seats? Did you change seats? Hey!" She was almost yelling at passengers she was interacting with. And it felt like I was watching an episode of Border Security Australia, where people get caught with food. Somehow, speaking slower and louder was supposed to help when the recipient of the information could not understand her in the first place. It was definitely a jaw-dropping first-hand experience of French hospitality, and I was enjoying every moment of it. Air France puts forth their best in advertising campaigns and marketing collaterals. It's full of fashionable, good-looking people decked out in Christian Lacroix, pouting at choice locations all over Paris. In reality, Air France cabin crew look more like this. And when I said earlier in the video I didn't see any flight attendants during boarding, that's because they blended in so well with us, I didn't even know they were flight attendants. They were dressed in long-sleeved t-shirts like this without any name tags. It wasn't until they started reaching towards the ceilings to close the luggage bins did I then realize they were our flight attendants for tonight. Meanwhile, the main meal service soon came around, and Antoinette was gentle in her service delivery with generous, genuine smiles, speaking softly in French and English. She soon figured out I was conversant in basic French, but kept the interaction superficial. Options tonight were pasta with mushroom bolognese or roast chicken thigh with paella. This meal tray was a generous serve of food, filled to the brim with salad, banana cake, cheese and crackers, with a bun and butter. The meal was catered out of Singapore by sass, and it was delicious. On the other aisle, Hissy was being her usual chirpy self, and I noticed her refusal to speak English. "Madame, monsieur, pasta, poulet. Madame, pasta, poulet." When I fly in economy, I always choose seats at the rear of the aircraft because this is where you might find empty seats around you. My husband disappeared a few rows behind to score a few seats to stretch out for the night, and I attempted to do the same as I fashioned my surroundings into a makeshift poor man's lie-flat business class. It wasn't perfect, but I was soon dozing off for a few hours in my push to acclimatize my body to the European time zone. At some point during the night, I got up to get a drink at the rear galley. For those of you familiar with the 777, you know how huge the rear galley is, and it was there I found Antoinette and Hissy deep in an animated conversation amongst themselves. They stopped, and an awkward silence filled the air as their eyes spoke volumes, and they seemed to say, "What do you want?" At the sight of Hissy, my butt cheeks clenched up, and the French part of my brain froze and defaulted to English as I timidly asked for a cup of Coke with ice. Without missing a beat, Hissy's eyebrows raised to its maximum position, wrinkling her forehead into a Chinese dumpling. She then nodded to door 5L at the opposite end. "You can help yourself there, huh?" Antoinette smiled and touched my arm as she responded to me in French and said, "You can have as much as you like." Then they went back into their animated conversation as if I did not exist. Hissy meanwhile remarked in French to Antoinette, "Oh, so this one speaks French," and then laughed aloud. I immediately felt the need to kneel down in front of this sassy royalty. At that moment, I would have fed her peeled grapes if she asked me to. Now that I was awake and there was no going back to sleep no matter how I tried, All I could do was snack and drink and then repeat, while I fired up Bejeweled and looked out of my window to identify cities we were flying over. Man, if only I was doing this flight in the daytime. Can you imagine the window view? And good morning, guys. We are about an hour, just slightly less than an hour and a half out of Paris. The lights has just been turned on and oh my god, I tried to sleep as much as I could. I think collectively I had about 2 hours worth of sleep spread out throughout the entire night. I mean, it's economy class, it's as comfortable as it can be. Yeah, I think there's breakfast, I'm not too sure. But throughout the night we could reach for sandwiches. So this is my third one because I'm so hungry. So this is my third sandwich. Yeah, so I'm not sure if there's a breakfast service, but we shall see. Yeah, 1 hour 32 minutes left till our arrival into Paris. Of course, there was a breakfast service. This is, after all, a long-haul flight on a full service carrier. The second meal service came in a paper deli bag, and I was amazed at how much they could squeeze into it. There was a warm wrap of eggs, smoked meat, and potatoes, which was absolutely delicious. Accompanying it was yogurt, a bread roll with butter and jam, a box of fresh fruits, and a packet of sickly sweet orange juice, which I wasn't a fan of. Hot and cold drinks were served separately. As I tuck into this comforting hot wrap for breakfast, let's use this time to conclude my first ever experience on Société France. France is a country where its reputation precedes everything else. There is no beating about the bush, and they shoot like a straight arrow and let their opinions be known. Therefore, French hospitality is intertwined with this world-famous cafe culture. And it could mean two extremes. They are either incredibly warm and welcome you into their relaxing boulangerie, or the cafe is so busy no one has the time to even look you in the eye, and they serve you with a huge dose of impatience. These two opposing service styles were so evident on this flight, it felt like a crash course in all things French before your actual trip into Paris. Only the French can dish out so much sass and still be stylish about it. In my encounters with Antoinette and Hissy, the only thing missing were cigarettes perched on their fingertips as they flailed their arms expressing their points. I truly enjoyed observing every single second of their interaction. And to say I worship the sassy disposition of Hissy is an understatement. As far as I'm concerned, she is my Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada. France, together with Italy, are the frontline trailblazers as far as fashion is concerned. Layers upon layers of fabric come together as a final ensemble before the flash of cameras illuminate the final showpiece for the runway. Perhaps with all my preconceived notion of how fashion-forward France is, this economy product felt extremely basic and, dare I say, very bland. Make no mistake, there are worse economy products out there. But for all the pomp, passion, and oomph we get from all things French, the overall vibe felt extremely flat and plain. There was hardly any pizzazz or flair, and the only thing French given to us on AF 257 from Changi to Charles de Gaulle was the attitude, which I strangely enjoyed so much. And with this, we shall now arrive into Charles de Gaulle Airport, where I'll take you through one of the most complicated transits I've ever done.
It's alright. We're in Paris!
And that was Air France from Singapore to Paris. So we're now in Charles de Gaulle Airport. I have no idea which terminal we're in, and I really have no idea which terminal we're going because we are getting on Air Malta to Malta. So we need to settle the boarding passes because we could not get it in Singapore. Yeah. So let me settle that transit and then I will talk to you to close the video.
This isn't my first time doing a transit on a complicated itinerary. Under normal circumstances, this is where we head to a transfer desk, present our case, and get our boarding passes for the next flight. Sounds simple enough, right? In our world of logic, there are only two ways to get things done: the right way and the wrong way. And then the French invented the French way. Air France sold us this journey from Melbourne to Singapore, Paris, and then Malta. When checking in at Melbourne, the agent could only give us boarding passes right up till here, and the Paris to Malta segment could not be issued. It was the same story with Air France in Singapore. No one knew why. So we begin our experience with Air France and their home base of Charles de Gaulle Airport. A lot of parallels can be drawn between this and the Peugeot 3008. Beautifully designed, tactile and high-quality interior, and a truly exquisite ambiance which screams ooh la la. But 80% of the car's function are controlled through this little screen here, and what you need the car to do is hidden in complicated menus and sub-menus which makes almost no logical sense. And it's with this French logic we walk towards the unknown here in Terminal 2E. We determined that our next flight with Air Malta is departing from Terminal 2D. We see a sign which says Interterminal Transfer to 2D, but the usher shoos us away because we don't have a boarding pass. Lesson number 1. Boarding passes are required to do an interterminal transfer if you're airside. I plead with him in French what to do. He points to a self-check-in kiosk, but our booking reference is rejected. So we got no joy from that machine. I start scanning for a transfer desk, but yeah, they're either not manned or they were never planned to be manned in the first place. An airport staff happened to be walking by and we asked for help, and we are told to approach Air France customer service at the next terminal. There isn't any signage at this point where to go, but the lady is kind enough to say take the train to the next stop. Once off the train, we finally see the very first sign which tells us where to go. So we arrive at the Air France customer service here in Terminal 2E. Yes, we're still within the same complex. It started with one agent who began tapping at her keyboard. Then another joined in, and another, and finally a fourth decided to join in the party. More tappings on the keyboard as they angrily hit enter, and exclamations of "Pourquoi je ne sais pas?" And they were still no closer to solving the mystery why our boarding passes could not be issued. In the end, a fifth agent, who wasn't even behind the counter, walked by and said, "Are they flying on Air Malta? They need to clear immigration and check in with Air Malta."
Okay, to say Charles de Gaulle is confusing is an understatement. Anyway, so the whole itinerary is Melbourne, Singapore, Paris, Malta. So all in Melbourne, they were only able to give us the boarding pass for Melbourne, Singapore, Paris. So they said try it in Singapore. So we went to Singapore. Air France in Singapore wasn't able to give us the boarding pass for Paris to Malta. This entire ticket was booked by Air France, and it is an incredibly frustrating transfer. Even the people in Air France, we arrived in, what terminal did we arrive? 2E? Yeah. We arrived into Terminal 2E, and even the people in Air France couldn't give us a boarding pass. They say you had to exit because you can't do an interterminal transfer in Charles de Gaulle without a boarding pass. So we had to exit the terminal and make our way to Terminal 2D to manually check in with Air Malta. So
considering all was booked through Air France.
Go figure. This entire thing was booked with Air France. And it's just one hurdle after another. And signage in Charles de Gaulle is very, very bad. If you've not been here before, it is very confusing. I mean, I've been here like probably about 30 years ago. It was confusing then. This looks like a new terminal, but it is still confusing. Perhaps it's just a French way of doing things. Everything looks pretty, everything looks nice, but you know, let's complicate things a little bit more to make it French. This is what it feels like. Anyway, we're heading to Terminal 2D now. I'm not sure if we're able to check in because our Air Malta flight doesn't depart until about 10-ish. It is now about 6:30, coming close to 7. So I'm not sure if we are too early to check in for Air Malta. Yeah, we'll know when we get there.
We eventually make it to Terminal 2D, and this is where I'll close off episode number 2 of this travel series. If you followed us since episode number 1, thank you for your support. Don't forget to look out for future episodes of this series, and they will be linked in the description below as and when they're published. What's your Charles de Gaulle experience like? Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, do not forget to hit subscribe and the bell icon so you won't miss what's coming up next. I'll say farewell to you here, and until the next time, merci beaucoup et à bientôt.